Hello, I'm Adin sir. Last week the beta for Legion went live, wiping out the alpha characters, and I thought why not share my thoughts on the alpha since it did last for quite a long time. First of all, the point of this video is to look at and analyze how the alpha progressed and what that means for the beta and the live version. There is no denying that Legion is and will be Warlords 2.0, and therein lies the biggest issue I have with it. If there was no Warlords and Legion came after Mists, then I doubt that 8 of the 10 million players would have left, rather most of them would have stayed. And that's because Legion is an improvement on Warlords in every possible way except for leveling. But the simple fact that it doesn't change the formula which made Warlords such a disaster is going to hold it back. And another thing, Legion doesn't even resemble the original WoW in any way, even more so than Warlords. So I would say that everyone who wanted to see a return to form and everyone who just wants to play WoW will not get the chance to do so. However, for anyone that started in Warlords or that is going to start in Legion, will have an awesome experience. So without going into much detail, here is what I think of the various aspects of the game. So I mentioned that leveling is worse than in Warlords, so I'll talk a bit more about that. So yeah, it's a joke like for the past couple of years. The scaling of the world just destroys any kind of progression and power up, which is one of the best experiences you can have in any MMO or single player RPG. Why they needed to do this is beyond me. It also destroys a lot of the novelty of reaching max level. The traditional daily quests are now given by an interface instead of an NPC, and while you can choose what weekly and daily quest you can do at any given time, the simple fact is that you are going to regions you already explored, and what's even more insane, you are doing the same quests you did while leveling. If you, however, find a different quest, and that's not that common, there is a really high chance that you will be killing the same mobs at the same places where you leveled. That's not counting Suramar. While in previous expansions, not including Warlords, you had closed off areas in zones dedicated to max level quests. And another thing is that the overall story is kind of nowhere to be found. The zones themselves have a story, but they aren't interconnected as in Warlords. Also, the zones are really badly designed. Same as Asheran, from the topographical layout, which matters a lot, to the placement of the quests and quest hubs. So when I was going through the zones, I was forced from one bite-sized quest hub to another. Same as going from a closed corridor to a next corridor in a FPS game. Never seeing the next quest hub from a distance, not staying in one more than 10 minutes, not having to explore anywhere or anything. And that ruins the immersion and it made me feel disjointed from the world. It might be reasonable for Blizzard to not focus so much on the zones and on the leveling, when most people just spend a fraction of their time in WoW actually leveling. But that's not an excuse. Also, what could have made the leveling a nightmare for me if I didn't play a Death Knight was the increased HP of every mob. With normal green and blue gear, it takes every class, and I've tried almost all classes, way too long to kill a single mob. And that doesn't make it hard in any way, it's just tedious and frustrating. So that's where the negatives end. Like I said, it's only for leveling. so everything else is a real step up. I just hope that it's not too late. At max level you have lots of things to do, so like the dailies I mentioned, and even though they are set up the way that they are still there. That's more than I can say for Warlords. Some of them require groups to be formed, thankfully not raids. The order halls are kinda interesting, if for nothing else than for the aesthetic itself. Then there is a real return in the dungeon gameplay, I could say. There is almost double the number of dungeons there was in Warlords, and most of them look amazing with their own unique aesthetic, mobs and story. Not only orcs and ogres. Though again, while leveling there isn't a challenge to be had in those dungeons. However, with the new Mythic Plus or Challenge Mode or whatever it's called, it brings a new dynamic to dungeons and to the entire endgame. And to be honest, that's the most interesting part of Legion for me, and the part I'm looking forward to the most. It's of course a system that exists in a lot of other games, even other Blizzard games, but I'm guessing that it will work great in WoW due to 5 people being involved. The raids are, well, whatever, same as in Warlords. As for the classes, it's hit and miss, like 50-50 I would say. Some specs like the Arcane Mage and Red Paladin are much better than they were for a long time, while others like the Balance Druid and all the Hunter specs are simplified and streamlined to infinity, and some others haven't changed much at all. So choosing a class and spec for Legion will be the most important thing, more so than ever before, since they didn't think half of them through as much as they should have. PvP. Well, no new BGs, 2 or 3 new arenas, no Asheron, thank god, and a new honor system. All in all, meh. The only thing to note is that the power disparity will still be present even without the PvP gear being so powerful. The new gap in power will come in the form of the PvP talents. All of the later talents are much better than the first few, but then again it's not so much huge of a power gap than it was before. And don't get me started on the artifact system. That's for another video. Also, professions are making a comeback as well, in a way, and there are a few other small things, but going back to the original point, Legion will be a good game if judged only by its merits and not by its name. So with Warlords behind it and Vanilla BC and Wrath in the distant past, it has a lot to prove, and I don't think it can. Not with the lazy leveling and zone design, not with everything from the order halls, animation, character models to raids, reminding people of Warlords so much. The only saving grace I can see is the Demon Hunter class and the new dungeon system. And that simply won't be enough when you think about it. Well, I'm off to play the beta and see what or if anything has changed and if the game has a future. Thanks for watching and see you next time.